Okay, quick gut check. How many tabs do you have open right now? Seriously.
Uh-huh.
And how many times today have you, send a message and then immediately started worrying how it landed?
Oh, absolutely. Or that little pang when someone doesn't reply right away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If that sounds even remotely familiar, well, congratulations, you're living squarely in the digital age.
Yep. It's this incredible, sometimes exhausting landscape, isn't it? Screens, constant pings.
And trying to decode human emotion through text and emojis. It's a lot.
It really is. And figuring out how to navigate all of that emotionally. It's not just helpful anymore.
No, it feels absolutely critical now.
Right. It's moved way beyond just processing information or, having the technical skills.
Mm,
Now, the real challenge is navigating ourselves and others with emotional intelligence when, well, so much of our connection happens without being in the same room.
exactly. And that's the territory we've really been exploring, digging into some compelling material that gets right into what it means to have emotional intelligence now.
In this hyper-connected world.
Yeah. So our mission today is to pull out the most important insights, maybe some surprising data points, and really understand why digital emotional intelligence isn't just the latest corporate buzzword.
It really isn't.
It feels like a vital skill set for you, navigating everything from your work inbox to your social feeds.
So let's define it, maybe. Digital emotional intelligence.
How'd I do?
At its core, it's where traditional EI meets our digital lives. It's that ability really to understand and manage your own emotions and, crucially, the emotions of others, specifically within these online environments.
Well, it's like reading the virtual cues.
Exactly. Reading between the lines of a text, knowing when to push send versus when to maybe step away for a bit.
Uh-huh.
Figuring out the true tone behind punctuation. Is that period passive-aggressive or just a period?
The eternal question.
Right. And very importantly, having the wisdom to disconnect when you need to.
It definitely sounds like traditional EI got a necessary, maybe slightly overdue software upgrade.
That's a good way to put it.
And why is this suddenly so front and center? I mean, we saw in the material how searches for terms like digital burnout, remote team management,
Online empathy.
digital resilience.
Yeah, all those have seen a really significant surge since 2024.
And that surge is a huge signal, isn't it? It's not just some academic trend.
No.
It directly reflects a widespread, felt experience. People are grappling with these challenges right now.
Challenges like.
Well, the very real mental health impact of remote work, for one, that relentless pressure of being constantly available, and just the fundamental human need to maintain real connections when physical presence isn't there.
So digital EI is kind of emerging as the skill set for these specific modern pressures.
Exactly. It's a direct response to the kind of daily struggles many of us are experiencing.
Okay, so before we fully dive into the digital upgrade, maybe let's quickly ground ourselves in the original framework.
Good call. The material we looked at brought us back to Daniel Goleman's popularization of traditional EI and those 5 core pillars. Right, the classics. First up was self-awareness.
Yes. Knowing your own emotions as they happen, understanding how they affect your thoughts, your actions, and how you impact others.
Okay, then self-regulation.
Yep.
That's about managing impulses, right?
Right.
Not just reacting to every feeling.
Precisely. Especially the negative ones, not letting them hijack you.
Got it. Third,
Motivation. Using your emotions to drive you towards goals, to persist through setbacks, rather than letting emotions derail you.
makes sense. And empathy,
Understanding and sharing the feelings of others, really trying to see things from their perspective.
crucial. And the last one,
Social skills. Basically, handling relationships well, navigating social situations effectively, building rapport.
so those 5 have been the standard for years.
They have, but the shift to digital interaction just fundamentally changes the playing field, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, so much happens through text, email, video calls, where we lose those incredibly rich, instantaneous nonverbal cues.
You mean like body language, tone of voice?
Exactly. The subtle shifts, the genuine warmth or hesitation in someone's voice, that shared smile across a room. Traditional EI relied heavily on those cues.
And that loss of information, that's really why the material points to this need for a digital reboot of EI.
Precisely. It highlights some pretty unavoidable drivers for this change.
Like what?
Well, first, Just the sheer fact of constant connectivity. Our phones mean we're technically available almost anywhere, anytime.
Blurring those lines between work and personal life like never before.
Absolutely. And hand in hand with that is the huge shift to remote work,
Right, where quick chats by the water cooler are replaced by scheduled Zooms and Slack messages.
which requires a totally different skill set to maintain connection and understanding.
And then there's social media.
Uh, yes. Interweaving our sense of self-worth with likes, shares, comments.
Creating this constant emotional vulnerability for so many people.
And finally, just the nature of virtual communication itself. Like we said, losing nonverbal cues makes intent harder to read.
And misunderstandings so much more likely.
Yeah. And this digital shift hasn't just changed how we communicate, it's profoundly impacted our well-being. The data here is pretty stark.
It really is. I remember one figure that jumped out from the material. A survey found 64% of UK employees said their mental health got worse because of remote work.
And they cited things like isolation, lack of routine.
And just too much screen time. Makes sense.
And building on that, the risk of burnout is alarming. The material pointed to, 82% of employees being at risk of burnout in 2025?
82%. That's huge. And remote workers specifically facing a 20% higher risk than people in the office.
That connection to the digital environment is just undeniable.
So in this new reality, it becomes incredibly clear, like the material underscores, developing digital EI isn't just a nice-to-have soft skill.
No, it's fundamentally essential for your personal well-being, your professional success, and just for maintaining genuine relationships.
And the demand for these skills is apparently skyrocketing.
It is. The material noted that while maybe only around 36% of people globally are estimated to be highly emotionally intelligent right now, the demand for those EQ skills is projected to grow by 6 times in the next 3 to 5 years.
6 times. Wow. Think about what that means for your career or your team.
Absolutely. And for anyone in leadership, or honestly anyone on a team, that other data point was powerful.
Which one?
Companies that actively prioritize EI are 22 times more likely to perform at a higher level. 22 times.
Okay, so yeah. Deeply personal, but also a direct, measurable impact on success.
Which brings us to the practical side. How do those 5 classic pillars actually get, remixed for the digital world?
Right. Let's break it down. Start with digital self-awareness.
Okay. Digital self-awareness.
For me, this immediately brings up, catching yourself mindlessly scrolling when you meant to do something else. Or grabbing your phone the second you feel bored. Is that part of it? Understanding those automatic digital habits.
Absolutely. That's a huge part. Seeing your own digital footprint, your tendencies. Do you check emails during dinner? Doom scroll late at night?
Guilty. Sometimes.
Recognizing these specific habits is step 1. But it's also recognizing your online emotional triggers.
Okay, what do you mean by triggers?
What happens online that immediately shifts your mood? Is it seeing certain posts on social media, comparing yourself, getting a critical comment, or, being left on read? Identifying what in the digital space sparks a strong emotional reaction in you is crucial.
That makes a lot of sense, like being a digital detective for your own feelings.
Precisely. And a critical piece the material highlighted is setting digital boundaries.
Yes, the constant battle.
In a world where work pings can arrive at midnight, consciously deciding when to switch off, muting notifications, creating device-free zones, it's vital for protecting your mental space.
The source had that really interesting stat about self-awareness, that 95% of people think they are self-aware.
Right, but only 10–15% actually demonstrate it.
Which just shows this digital version isn't easy. It takes real, intentional effort to see these patterns.
It really highlights how much of our digital behavior can be on autopilot.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving from awareness, we get to digital self-regulation.
Right. So if you recognize, say, that a certain type of post triggers anxiety, how do you manage the impulse to keep looking? Or maybe lash out in a comment?
Managing those online impulses? Yes. Like resisting the urge to fire off that slightly passive-aggressive email immediately.
Or oversharing personal frustration on social media in the heat of the moment. We've all seen it.
Exactly. It's about that pause before you click send or post. But it also involves proactively practicing things like digital detoxes and mindfulness.
Taking intentional breaks from screens.
Yeah.
Using tech mindfully.
Yes. For specific purposes, not just reacting. It helps regain control, prevents that overwhelmed feeling.
And that ties into coping with the sheer overload, doesn't it?
Definitely. When information is flooding in, knowing how to prioritize, maybe delegate digital tasks, or just saying no sometimes.
That's a powerful act of self-regulation in itself.
The material frames these as essential skills for managing the mental load. Agreed. Next up, digital empathy. This feels like one of the hardest ones to translate.
Totally. How do you really get someone's feelings or intent when you're missing all those cues?
Right. You're stuck trying to read virtual cues, the tone you think is in their text, the punctuation.
Is that period hostile? Is the emoji sincere or sarcastic?
Exactly. And even response time. The material admits, yeah, this is inherently imperfect.
So what does digital empathy look like then?
Well, it makes understanding the impact of your own online words even more critical. A poorly worded message lands differently without body language to soften it.
So being super intentional with your language, thinking how it might be received.
Yes. And combating what the source called digital disinhibition.
Ah, the keyboard warrior effect.
Pretty much. The screen feels like a shield. People say things they'd never say face-to-face. Sometimes it escalates to trolling or cyberbullying.
So digital empathy means remembering there's a real person on the other side.
A real person with feelings. Actively resisting that urge to be harsh just because you can hide behind a screen.
And the material mentioned addressing online bullying as part of this too.
It did. Having the empathy to see harm and the, well, social skill to address it, even when it's uncomfortable online.
Okay. Moving on to digital motivation. How do you stay focused in a world of infinite digital distraction?
This is about harnessing your drive within the digital environment, not just being swamped by it. Setting clear goals despite the pings.
So using digital tools for you, not against you.
Exactly. Using them strategically for productivity, for growth, rather than letting them pull you into endless consumption loops. Like using online courses, focus apps.
Instead of getting lost scrolling social media feeds, using tech to help, not hinder your goals.
Precisely. Finding meaning and intention in your digital interactions. Making sure your time online serves your bigger picture.
Okay, and finally, digital social skills. Building authentic connections virtually.
This involves consciously working at it. Navigating professional networks, thoughtfully remembering that LinkedIn profile is a real person.
Right, not just a contact.
And crucially, resolving digital conflicts respectfully. Disagreements over email or chat require different skills than face-to-face.
And effective collaboration in virtual teams, which is the reality for so many now.
Huge. The material emphasized things like crystal clear communication, practicing active listening even on video calls.
Yeah, resisting the urge to check email during a Zoom call.
We all know the temptation. And doing regular check-ins just to maintain rapport, these are the foundations for virtual teamwork.
These digital social skills seem directly relevant for anyone working remotely or just trying to maintain relationships online.
Absolutely.
Now, to show this isn't just theory, the material had a pretty compelling case study, didn't it?
It did. It was about a mid-sized tech company. They were facing real challenges with their remote teams, high turnover, morale dipping, productivity issues.
And they did something based on digital EI principles.
Yeah, they implemented a software platform, something like Vorkal HRMS was mentioned as an example, designed to help leaders get a read on team sentiment.
So like identifying emotional friction points, giving managers tools to support better.
Exactly. And the results were quite powerful. Within 6 months, they saw a 30% decrease in employee turnover.
30%?
And a 50% increase in employee satisfaction scores.
Wow. That's a tangible example of how focusing on these digital emotional dynamics really pays off.
Definitely shows measurable improvements in team cohesion and productivity.
And the material was realistic here. Navigating this digital world with high EI isn't easy. There are significant challenges.
Oh, for sure. One of the biggest, contributing heavily to burnout, is just the sheer information overload and decision fatigue.
The constant fire hose.
Our brains weren't built for it. It's exhausting. That 82% burnout risk we mentioned, this fuels it.
And the reduced face-to-face interaction is still a major hurdle. Makes misunderstandings so easy.
And quick to escalate when you can't read the room, literally.
Then there's the echo chamber effect.
Right. Algorithms feeding you stuff that just confirms what you already believe. It limits exposure to different views, makes empathy harder.
And the darker side, cyberbullying and trolling. Anonymity online can be brutal.
It's a serious challenge to well-being. You need intentional strategies to handle it.
Plus, the pervasive social media comparison syndrome.
Constantly seeing curated highlight reels can really erode self-esteem.
Definitely. And finally, that constant struggle with blurring work-life boundaries.
Yes. Remote work means work is always just a tap away if you don't set firm limits.
That always-on feeling is relentless. I remember the stats. 57% working outside hours, a third feeling perpetually connected.
recognizing these struggles is, like we said, part of digital self-awareness. But the good news is the material also gives concrete strategies for developing digital EI.
Okay, practical steps. What can people actually do?
First, mindful technology use. Schedule breaks. Use Do Not Disturb. Reflect. Why am I picking up my device right now? Is it serving me?
Good questions. And setting clear digital boundaries.
Define your digital end of day. Turn off non-essential notifications. Create device-free zones. Maybe start with the bedroom.
Ambitious, but good. What else?
Practicing active listening, even virtually. Make eye contact on calls. Nod. Summarize. And resist multitasking. Your attention span and the other person will thank you.
Okay. And cultivating digital empathy takes conscious effort.
Pause before reacting to an annoying message. Use positive language. Seek clarification instead of assuming the worst.
Building digital resilience, too.
Yes. Learn to disengage from trolls or toxic stuff. You don't have to respond to everything. Seek support if needed. Practice self-compassion if you slip up online.
Are there tools that can help?
There are. The material mentioned mood tracking apps, online EI courses, mindfulness apps like Headspace or MoodFit, and for teams, those platforms like ForCall HRMS.
And finally,
Promoting a positive online presence. Be intentional about what you share. Remember your digital footprint lasts. Try to uplift others online.
so after putting in all this work, what's the ultimate payoff? Why develop higher digital EI?
Well, the benefits listed were pretty significant. First, improved mental well-being. Less stress, more control, more satisfaction.
Makes sense. Professionally.
Enhanced collaboration and leadership, especially remotely.
Stronger relationships, too.
Definitely. Stronger, more authentic relationships, online and off.
And likely increased productivity from better focus.
Better decision-making amidst the noise.
And greater resilience to online negativity.
And again, the numbers back this up. That stat, about 90% of top remote performers having high EI.
And companies prioritizing EI being 22 times more likely to outperform.
These skills really do pay dividends, personally and professionally.
Looking ahead, the material seems clear. Digital integration isn't slowing down.
Not at all. Technology will keep evolving, and digital EI will only become more vital. That ability to blend digital savvy with real empathy and self-awareness.
That's going to define success.
In many ways, yes. Both in work and just navigating daily life. Emotional intelligence, traditional and digital, is what keeps us human and connected through the screens.
It's shifted from a soft skill to a foundational necessity.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to a final thought, something that really came through from the material we explored, something for you to maybe sit with.
Okay.
The next time you find yourself in one of those digital challenge moments, reading a message that makes your stomach clench, or feeling that pull to just scroll endlessly, or you're facing a difficult virtual conversation, just pause for a second and ask yourself this question.
What would a digitally emotionally intelligent person do right now?
Exactly.
And then maybe consider taking that step.
Something to think about for sure.